All right, welcome to Experience This Season 4, Episode 10. I've just found out. So excited to be here today with co-hosts. Do you want to jump in and give us a quick intro, Laurie?
Sure. Laurie Timoney with Insightful International. Happy to be back after a little bit of a hiatus with Christian and Bruce off in the land down under. So here we are again, and looking forward to this conversation with Erik.
And I'm Bruce Rosard. I'm one of the co-founders of Arrival, and just back from Brisbane a couple of weeks ago. Our first ever event in Australia. It was awesome. Went really, really well. And before that, a couple of months before that, we were in Valencia, and it feels like I've been on the road the entire summer. Here it is, mid-July, and just got back to Boulder. Need to hop on my bike and get out there. Really happy to have Erik Blachford with us. There'd be too many affiliations to try to get through, Erik. I know that the first time we spoke, I don't know if you remember, I was running my ski company, Moguls Mountain Travel, and my big deal was to try to have partnerships with as many people as possible, one of which was Expedia. I called Expedia, and you picked up the phone, and I remember talking about your favorite ski area in Colorado was A Basin, and that was the first communication I ever had with you. That would have been around 1994, 95. I'm sure I don't remember it, but I did. And here you are. So welcome to Experience This. And maybe you could tell us some of your affiliations, starting with Expedia and beyond.
Well, I was going to say I should start with Arrival. That's my favorite affiliation. I've enjoyed being an attendee and a speaker a bunch of times. Sure. For those who don't know, so I was on the founding team at Expedia. It's true. Expedia launched in 1996. How's that for a reality check, right? 30 years ago. And boy, have things ever changed since then. And I guess along the way, I spent a lot of time as an operator at Expedia, then at an environmental company called TerraPass, and then at a tour operator called Butterfield & Robinson, which does high-end active travel. Then I had a long chapter in the investing side of the house. I was a venture partner at TCV, which is a late-stage growth equity firm in the Valley. That was actually one of the first big investors in Expedia. So that's kind of what that connection is there after Expedia went public. And in these days, it's mostly board and advisory work. Over the last 20 plus years, I kind of built up a bunch of different boards. I guess my longest standing board is actually not in travel, it's real estate. It's Zillow, which of course was founded by Rich Barton and Lloyd Frink, two of the other Expedia co-founders. But these days I'm on a bunch of different travel boards. You guys may have seen today, Fora Travel just announced a new round of funding at a nice new valuation. So I guess I'm on another unicorn board, which is fun. And I'm very, very excited about that and happy to talk about it some more. Also, I'm the chairman of the Venture Travel Trade Association, and I'm on the board of HipCamp, and I own a camp north of Montreal, and spend a lot of my time kind of focused on everything having to do with the outdoors. I don't really have an affiliation with like an outdoor gear thing, but everything to do with outdoor travel and outdoor recreation. It's sort of a personal passion, but also it's a great business. And I spend a lot of time thinking about it and thinking about, how are people going to respond with their travel habits to a world where increasingly what they sort of interact with all day long is a screen that's populated on the other side by something that's not human. And so I'm a big fan of things that are human, things that get people outdoors.
Could you go back to being an operator? It's a fairly common path, right? People start out as operators and working hard into one operation. Could you go back and be a 80-hour-a-week person in a startup and doing all the work?
Doing the 996, baby. It's interesting. Doing a raw startup, I think that's maybe a young man's game. But actually, I would love to. I mean, if I could tap a magic wand and you put me in charge of Butterfield & Robinson again or something like that, I think that's great. I mean, that's a great life, and it's really nice customer base, right? So much of it comes down to that. And it's a company, 50, 60 employees, something like that, which is big enough to be real. But it's funny. I don't think I'd enjoy being in a raw startup. Me, my AI, and my dog kind of thing. That's sort of intimidating. And I don't know that I would love the full corporate grind again. That gets old, as everybody kind of knows as well. But in the middle, Sure. It's nice to have a main thing. It's a little strange sometimes to have, even though I really enjoy doing board and advisory stuff, and it keeps me, sort of interested in lots of different things. Sometimes it's nice to have a main thing. It's been a while since I had just the thing you wake up every morning thinking about and go to bed every night thinking about. That's a nice feeling too in life sometimes.
Yeah, I go to Fisherman's Wharf quite a bit just to sort of visit, because I spent most of my life down there, and every now and again I think, could I do this again? Could I buy a bunch of buses and hire drivers? And because I miss the buzz, but it's hard to go back, I think, sometimes. Yeah. Bruce, would you go back to your operational? I mean, you're operational still now, I guess, but could you go back?
Well, it's different. When I left Moguls, when I sold the company for the third time, I swore I would never go back to B2C. That's kind of what I got off of, was having customers call you at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm stuck in Chicago Airport trying to get to Jackson Hole. Help me. Like, we used to do that a lot, except we used pagers, if y'all remember what pagers are, right? So that I don't want to go back to B2C, although in Arrival, it is all B2B, but it's not that different because our customers are kind of like customers, right? Like if you run a bike tour company or a rafting tour company or, an attraction, that's our C, if you will. But they're not calling us at 6 a.m. stuck and trying to get to Jackson Hole. So no, I don't want to go back to B2C. That was a long-winded way of saying that.
They're not kind of like customers, Bruce. They are customers if they're at your
They're people and they're customers. I don't know.
Yes, all of you out there who are my customers, you are my customers. Absolutely. And you're highly valued. And you are B2B customers that I appreciate so much.
We're going to cut that out, and we're going to highlight the bit you said before that. Just to get
Yeah. It's definitely hard to go back. I found recently, doing something that I hadn't done in a while, I realized that I don't think the hunt is what I want to do anymore. Like there's a certain time in your life when you're really okay with that, and then you kind of move on from that, and then all of a sudden you try to go back, and it feels very different. So I think I've learned that I'm B2B for sure, not like being woken up at 3 a.m. kind of thing, but also not wanting to just like, pick up the phone, do the emails, do all the, the aggressive selling, all that kind of stuff. That's much harder now than it used to be for me.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, it's interesting. If I had to choose, I would definitely go B2C. That's where I just find that's all the juice for me. I love the marketing. I love trying to figure out and polish up positioning and figure out how to crack through. And I mean, right now, everybody is running around trying to figure out the new marketing stack in B2C, sort of famously, right? Because AI is scrambling everything. And I'm sort of that sick person who finds that fun and interesting. So I actually think, there's a lot to be said for really understanding your customer and understanding your proposition and figuring out how to make those things connect. I mean, I was the CMO at Expedia, and I guess I never lost it. It's just what I really enjoy doing. I was on the board at Peloton for a while, through the crazy ride of the pandemic and all the rest of it. And that was just a fascinating exercise in B2C, which, I mean, I'll never live through. Well, hopefully none of us will have to live through something like that again. But it was this unique set of circumstances that was just fascinating. I mean, just on an almost intellectual level, just to see how you've got a product that fits the need perfectly of the moment, and how are you going to actually make it happen? It was pretty cool.
Well, and you've had the benefit, or maybe made the benefit, because I don't believe in luck. I mean, I believe in people making their opportunities, of working for great B2C companies who could go out and make things happen, like Expedia, like a Hip Camp, which you didn't mention yet. And then talk about Zillow, that is, sure, they're not in travel, but their B2C approach has been fantastic. So there's some secret sauce you have there, Erik.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if it's me. I guess the other thing is, Zillow is a good example of something where it's a B2C company if you're a consumer, but of course, if you're a real estate agent, it's not, right? Then it's a B2B company. So it's a two-sided marketplace, very much like all the travel companies that we know so well. And so part of the thing is I spent a lot of time around marketplaces. Something like Peloton, where it's a more of a product-centric thing, is a bit the exception. Something like Hip Camp, which people probably know, Hip Camp is kind of the the best place in the U.S. and Australia anyway to find a campsite, often on private land as well. But it's very much a marketplace where we're selling to the people who are camping and also the people who own the land.
So all the companies.
Let's talk macro travel. Yeah, since you mentioned marketplaces and your history, I've always been fascinated by marketplaces and platforms in general, and I thought they'd rule the world forever. And then this thing came along 3.5 years ago, and it's starting to look like platforms could be in trouble. But what's your, and I don't want to always talk about AI, but obviously that's the most important thing that's happening.
You do always want to talk about AI.
Because it's the most important thing, right?
I can't help it.
Well, then don't say you don't want to talk about AI. Just do it.
Yeah. We made it, what, 10 minutes?
No, but I also like to put the phones and go off on a camp for a week. I think that's amazing, and we can get into that. But let's look at just macro industry. Where do you see everyone today? How are things going to unfold? Who's in trouble? Who's not?
Well, so I'll start by saying, way back when we did our Expedia roadshow back in 1999, we had a slide to explain the business that we called the egg, because basically we had on one side of the slide were all the different supplier types, and on the other side were all the different customer types, businesses, small businesses, etc. And in the middle was just a big egg that was Expedia, that was connecting the two things. So that's basically the industry structure, right? It doesn't matter so much what's sitting in there. And if at different levels of magnification, you can sort of see how the wiring works a little bit better. And I think that right now you're seeing this really interesting thing happen where, the tradition, very little had changed for an awfully long time. The OTAs had established their share, whether it be lodging or air, whatever you want. And brand.com, going direct to hotel and air and so on, had also established their share. And there was some movement around the edges. Now, as the LLMs come in, the big disruption, even though everyone talks about the LLMs as though they're all the same thing, they're kind of not, right? Because Gemini, because it's pulling traffic directly away from Google search, Gemini is having a much bigger impact on the industry than OpenAI is, even if OpenAI may have more traffic. And just because what's happening is, as we know, as people go into Google and they want to execute a travel search and they get pushed up into the Gemini result instead of to the Google organic or paid search links, well, that has a huge effect. Everybody across the industry has seen the effect on SEO. That free traffic is just gone. And even though some free traffic is coming now through Gemini, it's not clear how it's being directed. So I've had people complain to me. In fact, I think it was at an arrival event, sort of talking about how they used to get tons and tons of free traffic direct to their website. I wish I could remember who the vendor was now. But now what's happening is Gemini still surfaces them as the choice wherever it is, but they send all the links through Viator. And so now all of a sudden they're paying commission on a whole lot of stuff where previously they were getting the direct booking, and they have no idea how to influence that traffic. And so I would argue there's still a platform, right? There's still a marketplace, there's still the vendor, but now you've got this new piece of the marketing stack that's sort of floating on top of it. And I think that right now, the reason we're all, scratching our heads so much about AI is because we don't understand the rules of the road. If you're a vendor, a supplier, and you want to get more visibility in a paid platform, a discovery service like Google, well, you know how to do that. There's a bunch of people at Google who are more than happy to take your money from you in exchange for placement. Well, that's not true yet of the LLMs. And so I think the really big question is, I don't buy this notion that LLMs are going to replace OTAs. It doesn't make sense to me. I do buy the idea that at the high level, at the discovery layer, which principally right now I'd say is Google, I think LLMs are going to have a huge impact, but it's not clear exactly how they're going to make their money from the travel industry, only that they're going to. I would just be very surprised if all of a sudden they build all the piping to do the booking and end up with merchant model hotel. I would be very surprised based on what I know. And then I would say on the other side, somebody like Fora, which, look, back in the Expedia days, everybody used to say, "Oh, will the last travel agent please turn off the lights," kind of thing, right? And here we are, right, 30 years later, and Fora is using AI to make sure that travel agents or travel advisors anyway are more powerful than ever, because they've got all these power tools that regular people maybe aren't going to be able to use because they don't have access to the same platform. So I just think it's a much more nuanced thing than it often gets credit for, because the LLMs are playing a role in lots of different ways. And what it comes down to ultimately is how are travel suppliers going to be able to advertise their wares to the consumers, to the LLMs? And unless you guys know something I don't think there's been even a roadmap put in by
I
anybody.
have two kind of responses and thoughts and questions for both you, Christian, and Laurie, about what Erik just said. One is, so we've had 3 debates at Arrival events, basically who's going to win in the age of AI, OTAs or direct. And I don't think we have an answer yet. Christian's been very involved in running those debates, but there is no real answer yet. But so far, it's the OTAs, because like you said, the OTAs are doing deals with LLMs. The OTAs are showing up first in the LLMs. They have more money to figure all that out. Yeah. But the more important, or a different important question, is the Google Things to Do comparison, right? Because Google Things to Do is free. And if you're a good operator, you should be able to get in there free and surface your tours. But it still is the Viators and Get Your Guides and Klooks of the world who are showing up in Google Things to Do. And I know that's something that, Christian, you know a heck of a lot more about that than I do. But in my mind, it's similar to what Erik was talking about, where you have Google Things to Do or you have Gemini, and the operators really don't know yet how to take advantage of either. And
I think that's part of the problem. And I mean, I agree with you. The OTAs right now are taking, they're the ones that are winning. And to your point, the big ones, especially have a lot of money. I do think secondary OTAs are already starting to go away. I mean, you have CTIS that closed their doors. Another one, a smaller one in Italy, City Cards Italia, just closed their doors. PPC is super expensive. And if you don't have the tools to get to where you need to be, then, you're not going to succeed. But I see 2 things. One is that operators, smaller operators especially, they're just not doing the things that they need to do. Because again, I think part of their problem is they're out there doing their thing. They're doing their kayak tours, they're guiding, they're doing all the things, and they don't have the time. Google My Business Profiles, Google Things to Do, all of those things, they are so crucial to being found by Gemini and other LLMs, but they're not doing those either. And so it's super challenging. But one thing I did want to ask you, Erik, is what you make of Expedia's whole B2B. I mean, they're kind of, it seems like that's where they're focusing their efforts now, is B2B. And I'm thinking, my thought was, is it, are they really trying to build the pipes underneath so that, they're not going to have to worry about B2C necessarily, because they're going to have that layer underneath that just keeps the bookings running through to them.
Well, I think you just put it pretty well. Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the long-term durable advantage that somebody like Expedia has, and you think about all those pipes and all those supplier relationships, as they put their funnel out and put it under all these different sources of demand, which is really what the B2B thing is, it's a great way of hedging the demand there. I mean, I personally, I think it's very smart. I can absolutely see it. I think that in a situation where you're B2B and you've only got a few players who are giving you traffic, you give up a bunch of your leverage and it's hard to keep your margin, right? So Google being kind of the famous people who are very good at sucking all your margin away. But if you have a big broad approach, the way that Expedia is doing, I think it makes tons of sense. And I think it positions them very well actually for a world in which the discovery layer is changing very quickly. Because I mean, one thing that we should say, I mean, planning a trip using an LLM is pretty cool, right? I mean, there's no question the way in which people are researching travel is changing for sure. The way in which they're booking travel doesn't seem to be changing at all, right, so far. So to that extent, I think Expedia is making a pretty good bet. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah.
And by the way, I should also say, I'd be very surprised if Expedia and Booking, and anybody who's really got fluency with travel customers, if they're not experimenting madly with figuring out how to come up with a discovery layer of their own. I mean, there's no way they're just going to give it to the LLMs. I mean, that doesn't make sense. I mean, you guys probably see. I mean, how many travel discovery startups have we all been pitched in the last year? I mean, it's just, there's so many people trying to figure out the right way to harness the power so that people can build their trips better. And it just doesn't make any sense to me that the only people who are going to be good at that are the LLMs.
How many of you seen that you've said anything except no to?
The only I said yes pretty early on to there's a company called Soar, a guy named Stanley Virgin, who's a young guy who I think has a pretty good understanding of how people who are just starting out in their lives like to travel, which totally baffling to me. But they leave their location on for anybody to know, and they have no problem giving up access to their inbox for itinerary making and stuff. And I'm a Gen X guy. We don't do that. But anyway, that was pretty interesting to me. But everything that is UI focused, it's just changing too fast. There's no, I just can't see an investment thesis around anything that's based on UI right now. And there's no supply advantage to any of them.
Yeah, I think they're all going to fail until maybe one succeeds. It'd be like a Snapchat. It'd be like something that no one, it was just a stupid idea that shouldn't have worked, and all of a sudden it's taken over, and then.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, what's going to happen is we're going to sit here 2 years from now, and there's going to be a new OTA, right? That's going to be an LLM based on the discovery. Everyone's going to say, oh, that just works better. The way that it bundles the hotel and the experiences, or we don't know what it's going to be, but it'll be something that uses AI in a clever way. And I just completely agree. Like, why is TikTok what it is, and the other 50 services that try to do the same thing aren't? There's a certain magic to that, right?
Why have they not put? I mean, why is Reddit not have any kind of a booking feature attached to it? I mean, that seems to be one of the most, like, everyone uses Reddit now in terms of getting answers to any questions. I think it's actually the best channel for finding answers to questions, except for, I do use the LLMs for that, but you wonder, like, to me, that seems like an opportunity. Although at the same time, it's also intrusive, because why shouldn't there just be a chat channel that you can go on and chat without worrying about ads? That's the other side
Amen.
of it.
So, and the LLMs are using Reddit, right? Very much so.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast, I think last night, and it was with the ResTech company, who basically was saying that OTAs are threatened by agentic bookings. And I would love to hear your opinions on that, because I think that is super complex still. And sure, the guys at Expedia and Booking are talking about it, and we see a lot of efforts out there, but haven't seen anything that has gotten close to being able to replace an OTA for booking. Is it agentic booking going to replace it, or is just one of the OTAs will figure it out? But agentic bookings to me are, I don't know. I'm not being optimistic yet.
Yeah, I think agentic booking as a phrase means different things to different people as well. I mean, if you think about the sort of the deep plumbing of, say, the lodging side of the business with SiteMinder and the other channel managers out there, I mean, what bookings are just, it's just flowing back and forth through APIs, right? And the interface to the booking, right now, we're all very used to sort of the consumer interface through an Expedia, through a booking. It's so heavily automated that it's almost like Expedia or Booking.com is kind of acting as your agent already, right? I mean, here's where I want to go and when I want to go. Here's the thing I want to do. I would say that the pain point for a lot of people still, or just the irritation point, is having to plug in their credit card number and all that jazz as you're actually doing the booking. So I would predict that agentic booking, to start off with, is just going to be that. Like, it's very easy for me to imagine a world where, and you see this with the link system and a couple other things already from the website side, but I can see a world where my agent maybe isn't finding all this stuff and finding the hotel and picking the room site and all that stuff. But when it comes time to book it, instead of me having to fill all the forms out and put my credit card in and everything, I would love to just have a little one click, do it, and have my little agent do it.
I mean, that's like Amazon Prime, right?
Exactly, but well, it's like one click, right? But one click right now, we think of that as an Amazon service. There's no reason that one click couldn't be actually a personal service. Like, that could be something you carry around with you, as opposed to that living down on the e-commerce site. That to me is a pretty likely first step in agentic booking, but it's not very sexy, right? It's just utilitarian. I think the discovery stuff, I just don't really see the OTA core business being particularly threatened by that. I mean, I do see the Google search business being threatened, and I understand why they're pushing the Gemini as fast as they can and trying to get share away from OpenAI, because right now, whatever percentage of travel searches start at Google, and if that percent starts dropping and dropping and dropping in favor of OpenAI and Anthropic, well, that's very bad for Google, right, in the travel industry. So I understand why, like, that's a real fight up there at that level. I don't know that that's so much the truth at the OTA level, though.
Christian, I think you need to jump in here.
Well, yeah, a couple of things. I've been thinking about like first principles of marketplaces, right? And I think marketplaces, OTAs, did add 20 to 25% of value for the last 25, 30 years. Fine, Google took half of that, but they took half for themselves. Because it was difficult before. It was difficult to connect those dots, and we still, the LLMs. I agree with you, Eric, that the LLMs will never go to the booking. I don't think they will. Google will never go back to the bookings. They don't need to. But I think the problem is that OTAs are used to taking 20, 25%, because that's what they, I don't want to say deserve, but that's what they earned before. Now with the LLMs pushing all the traffic, the LLMs don't particularly need to monetize traffic right now, I don't think. I'm sure they'd like to a little bit. I don't think it's key for them. LLMs are making plenty of money on enterprise. So I think where there was 20% at play, now there's 2%. Now a GDS player, a middleman with just pipes can come along and do exactly the same thing. So I think to me, that's the thing. They're going to have to get squeezed. Although I will say, I would have argued 25 years ago that Google would get squeezed, and then that commission would come down and Google would end up doing everything for 5%. 2% ended up not being the case. Google made all the money. I think probably because they had no competition after a few of the early search engines. But now the LLMs have competition, they're going to get squeezed. OTAs, I think, get squeezed, and do they just become GDSs? There's value in that, but it's not more than a couple percent. I don't think.
It's I think it's sort of I mean, everything you're describing did happen, and it happened in the airline side of the business, right? Because the supply side was so concentrated. And so they had all the market power, and they knew the marketplaces didn't work without all the inventory available. And so, yeah, the squeeze was on. And there's a reason that OTAs just don't hardly make any money at all off airline. And the same thing is generally true in car rental. Until the hotel market gets a whole lot more consolidated, there's always going to be all the fragmented players out on the margin whose basic marketing cost is going to be what it's going to be through all the different channels they have available to them. And it just historically, it's been pretty, I mean, the only reason that the Expedias of the world could get away with charging the margins that we did, I mean, when we introduced all that, was because we were filling the rooms that would go empty otherwise. And it was just the truth of the thing. And they knew they were going to have to pay at least that much to fill the rooms through other channels, newspaper ads, whatever it might be. And so, okay, they'd rather pay us. In a world where the LLMs or someone else just becomes a kind of irrational, non-economic actor and wants to crater the business somehow. I mean, I suppose that's true. I mean, I guess somebody could say, well, we're just going to be a utility and provide free bookings to hotels out of the goodness of our heart. It's just capitalism, et cetera, sort of suggests that's not going to happen. So I'm going to just color myself a little skeptical there, because the hotel market is still so fragmented. I mean, did someone say there's 1 million different lodging now on the Booking.com platform worldwide, something like that? I mean, this is you're not going to see big universal shifts in commission when you're talking about a fragmented marketplace like that. I just not soon anyway. I don't think so.
And that's tied to, it ties to experiences also, right? I mean, that's even more fragmented.
Very, 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 very much. Yeah, very much actually.
So will LLMs really ever be able to change that distribution network if fragmentation is the key of where the commissions lie?
I think that's maybe the ultimate question. It definitely was fragmentation before. Is fragmentation still a factor now? And I'd argue that LLMs fixed fragmentation. They have fixed fragmentation because they can search 1 million websites in 0.4 seconds. and get you the answer that's most accurate rather than the one that's good at SEO. Well, when I said LLMs won't charge, I didn't actually mean that. LLMs will have an advertiser model. I'm convinced of it. I just think that there's competition there, and they'll get squeezed, hopefully. But
I think it's going to be continued challenges for businesses, smaller businesses, because the cost of doing business is just so high right now for them. I mean, the commissions that they have to pay out on the bigger OTAs is not 20%. It's 30%. It's 25 to 30%. And that's what they're having to deal with. And I think the whole travel advisor thing is really smart, because they can honestly, if they can work on that piece of, the B2B channel, that's just, they're not going to experience the same level of commission and margin that they have to pay out. So working with somebody like a Fora, I don't know what they're charging, but I'm guessing it's probably around 20%. But even when you look at like a Project Expedition, that kind of thing, they're not really asking for the type of margins that a Viator or a Get Your Guide is. But then on the other hand, they can't afford to pay for, pay-per-click. They can't afford social. They can't afford, it's getting really hard for them to market themselves. So yeah, it's a challenge all the way around. And in terms of fragmentation, I feel like it's going to be, well, that might change, because, you might just have businesses that can't afford to stay in business anymore.
Well, yeah. So one thing I'll say is, so Fora is just standard industry commissions, same as you'd expect from any agency. So you're certainly right on that. It's a lower commission than the big guys. The interesting thing is, so the marketing mix for destination experience providers, I mean, it's just changed over time. Like when Christian was running buses around, I mean, it would be very different marketing now than it was then, I guess. And I often think about the folks who do the bike tours in San Francisco. Where you bike across the Golden Gate Bridge and you take the ferry back. It's one of these sort of classic things to do. And you think, how do those people get their traffic, and how do they sell? And a lot of it is still walk up. There's a marketing mix there, right?
That's true,
and they know within, I'd say, a pretty good tolerance exactly how much they're willing to pay to get a customer on the bike. And it's probably a certain percentage, but they think of it in dollars. And if they can get it by putting a sign up, or by putting stickers in a nearby restaurant, or doing a deal with a hotel concierge, if that's cheaper and that makes more sense, they'll just do that instead of spending a bunch of money with another provider. A world in which there's only one way for people to find stuff to do, which I guess, at some extreme, people like to sort of think the LLMs are going to be the only way that people discover anything. Well, then you have a real problem. Then all these little guys, it's like you gotta pay to play. But I just don't think the world is simple like that. I think it's much more complicated.
It is interesting. I wonder what percent. I know it used to be a huge percent of experienced businesses were getting their business in market. I wonder where that is right now. I actually have no idea.
If you walk around New York City, they're not there on the street corners. There's some. I mean, in San Francisco, we're probably down to 25% of where it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
It's still a pretty huge percent. I should know this data, but 60, 70% is booked locally,
60, 70%?
Yeah, but you got to be careful with that, Bruce. That's a lot of attractions, right? That's a lot of just people walking up to the Madame Tussauds why would you book ahead, right?
Just walk in the door, buy a ticket, go up the Empire State Building elevator.
Because you can't count those people that are like already like getting an email from Get Your Guy and on their phone or whatever. I mean, you could count.
No, I'm not counting that, right? That would be an OTA booking, which we think is, about 10%. A lot lower than you would think, even though it was 5%. So it's doubled in the last few years. So I would have to do a little bit of homework if you want to have that whole discussion.
I think
but there's problems.
When they come up with a pitch deck and they say only 30% is booked digitally, therefore we've still got 70%.
We have a lot of runway. Yeah.
That maxes out at a certain number because of just weather or because of moods, and people don't want to have everything planned ahead. It does cap at some number. I don't know where it is, but it's not close to 100.
Yeah, I totally agree. But there's probably some experience. I mean, you guys are the experts, not me, but there's probably some things I think about, like I was at Arrival. I was sitting next to somebody who runs ghost tours in New Orleans, and I got the sense that a huge percentage of her traffic was coming in through the marketplaces, and that almost to the extent that was her main marketing channel. And I was thinking, yeah, okay, that makes sense to me. That's probably the kind of thing that, how else are you going to find out about it? There's no storefront or anything like that. So I guess it varies depending on the kind of experience too.
New Orleans has more than you would think visitor center desks that sell ghost tours and food tours and
I stand corrected.
All kinds of things. And I'm like, wow, they had a number of them throughout the city. You just walk in and they have stuff. So anyway, I think we're a little bit off topic. There's still a lot of channels.
Well, it all comes down to, like, if you're running an experience, you're running a hotel, whatever it is, you gotta get the people in, and you're going to be willing to pay some money.
Be where the people are. I mean,
and it's just, for a long time, it was a very steady flow of SEO, and you knew what to do to make sure that you got that SEO volume. And it's kind of gone, and it's not coming back. I think everybody understands that. And so the race is on to scramble, because everybody's business plans have been built around having some percentage of traffic coming in. I mean, Google really was a utility, a free utility, sending you traffic, manna from heaven. And as that goes away, everybody's having to scramble and adjust. But there will be an adjustment period, and we'll come out the other side of it, and everybody will have a different marketing mix. What's, like I said at the outset, the weird thing right now is the rules of the road aren't clear. Like, where do you spend your money to get more visibility? I mean, everybody would love to know how to do that with OpenAI, but you can't yet. And I mean, they don't even hardly know how the LLM results work themselves. So it's pretty hard to see how you'd be able to pay for, demonstrated, confirmed availabilities. But it'll happen at some point, I guess.
So I've got an easy question for you, Eric. What do you do with TripAdvisor?
That is a good question. Yeah, I mean, I think TripAdvisor it's sort of the ultimate double-edged sword thing when it comes to AI, right? Because it's got this huge data set, and you'd think that it would be a great time. I mean, I guess if I were, king for a day running TripAdvisor, I think what I'd put a huge amount of time into is the kind of experimentation around discovery that I was talking about before, and trying to figure out, okay, can I use LLM models under the hood to come up with a really great discovery? I wouldn't go into trying to make myself into an OTA. I would try to see, can I compete more effectively up at that discovery layer than I have in the past? But listen, it's a hard run thing, and I think right now, I guess they just sold off part of the business, the restaurant reservation thing, and there's sort of a chat. I think if I were in their shoes, I sort of understand there's probably temptation to separate out the brand business from the Viator business too, but I don't know where that stands. So yeah, I think I would put a lot of time into trying to figure out, can I get people to use a TripAdvisor front end experience, because they've got such a great database around. There's that old problem where there's almost overwhelming amount of reviews on stuff on TripAdvisor, and what you really want is just the reviews that actually are from people like you, and that just feels like such a great problem for AI to solve, right? Mm-hmm. Right, and so I sort of feel like there's something there for sure, because I would love to have a situation where I could go and get a bunch of suggested results and know that actually they had ingested everything about me, and they'd filtered the results, so that it wasn't a bunch of 22-year-olds who were on spring break. I mean, not that I couldn't do that, but
a little off.
Not my,
you you're Gen Z, right?
Anymore. Yeah.
But what do you think is that? Let's say we all agree that's a great idea. Is it more likely that you think TripAdvisor would do that, or that a startup would do that and figure out how to access that TripAdvisor data, filter it, and customize it, personalize it, what have you, and then monetize from there? Like,
okay. Well, anybody who had access to all the data, I suppose, could do the same sort of thing I'm talking about. But I mean, that is sort of the crux of it, isn't it? I mean, it's TripAdvisor's data.
It's TripAdvisor, yeah. I mean, what is their asset? Their asset are all the reviews they have, right?
I have the reviews, Laurie.
Yeah, and you're not the only one. So that data is accessible in some ways.
Well, yeah, but you're not supposed to use it. like the way you're talking about starting a company using their data. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they would make more money licensing it.
Who's going to
Hey,
stop
can I
it?
buy a license to your data?
Well, that might be true. That might be the way that Trip does it, right? I mean, that would be another way to think about it. It's like, here's the asset, maybe the best. I mean, right now there's an incredible marketplace. Speaking of marketplaces, for data that's being used for reinforcement learning at the LLMs. I mean, people are pulling together data sets all over the place and then selling that data. And maybe that would be a pretty interesting thing to do here too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they dropped the ball by the forum's still there, but I don't know the last time someone used the forum. It looks like it was built in 1999. But I thought the Reddit, I guess now, is TripAdvisor forum now, right? And I think that's got value, real up to date, what's happening in Sausalito this weekend with the with the thing.
At the same point, you have no idea who those people are on Reddit. So when I read one of their replies, like, okay, who's this person, right?
Well, no, but I mean, that's kind of the way it is on most social platforms. You really don't know who someone is. But I think even with TripAdvisor, like they always had these experts, right? The TripAdvisor experts in certain places. And I suppose I never actually did enough research to find out who they were or why they call themselves an expert, but I agree with you, Christian. I think they had a huge opportunity there for community building, for all kinds of different things, and they just didn't do anything with it.
I mean, they tried the social network, right? But listen, I think maybe last one I've picked on TripAdvisor. Let's pick on maybe Expedia for a second. So Expedia is still in the US. I think we think of it as kind of the biggest OTA, even though it's clearly miles behind Booking. I'm not sure if the regular person in the street knows that, but Expedia is barely beaten the stock market for the last sort of 10 years. And Booking has beat it by many times. What happened at Expedia? In many ways, it was just huge brand. It was very successful early, and then it just kind of fizzled out and flatlined. Better than TripAdvisor's done, but it dwarfs compared to Airbnb and Booking.
Is that pretty much since Erik left? When it's left?
I don't know. When did you leave Erik?
I left at the dawn of time. It's Christian, it's a good question. I mean, I think fizzle is strong. I think they've done better than that. Listen, I think that the fact that Expedia was pretty U.S. centric, and I think the rise of Airbnb definitely took a lot out of the lodging sector. For sure. And I think that's part of the reason probably that, I mean, I don't know this, but I think it's probably part of the reason that it makes sense for them to do this sort of bit of a pivot into the more B2B area, is because in a world where the consumer demand is just harder to access because of alternatives, I'm guessing that's part of that equation there. I mean, there's no question that, early, it's interesting how this works. Strategic choices that you make very early on, really do sort of tend to have that angle to them for later. Way back when I was actually still at Expedia, just towards the end of my tenure there, we passed on buying a company called Active Hotels in England, in the UK, that was doing very small lodging. Booking bought them and actually made them into the basis for Booking. But the interesting thing there was we had this just makes us look kind of bad, but whatever. We had a basic idea that below a certain number of rooms or a certain number of, certain annualized revenue, it wasn't worth our while to have a market manager actually managing the inventory. So we just wouldn't go after hotels underneath a certain scale. We just said, doesn't matter if people want to find them. It's a long tail. Doesn't really matter. We're just going to focus on where we can get efficiency out of our operation. Which in the US, where there's more chain hotels, there's more big operations and so forth, actually made quite a lot of sense and worked really, really well for a really long time, especially in markets like Vegas. But in Europe and in Asia, that's a bad strategy, right? Because people stay in a lot of those small places. And if they find that one platform has those small places and the other one doesn't, they're going to switch their loyalty pretty quickly when they're traveling to those parts of the world. And so we really gave up a whole pile of unnecessary sort of market goodwill by not doing that deal, by not going after the small lodging. And I think it's still true that Expedia has I think way fewer total lodging available than Booking. I think that's still true 20 years later. And it all that comes down to that. So sometimes these decisions you make in the sort of the heat of things, and you think you're making a good, smart, tactical business decision, and at the time maybe it even is, but boy, the effects downwind can be really something else. And Airbnb, of course, is an even smaller unit of logic, right?
Mhm.
Just to almost prove the point further on. So, I mean, I guess I would say that's probably still the difference maker, but
I
you
think
know,
the
I'm fairly far away from it, right? I haven't been involved with those companies in years.
I think the geo thing is a really good point because Expedia is so US centric in some of their major, destinations like Hawaii and the sort of Mexico and some of the beach places that US, the Disneyland and all of that. And when you got one market that's struggling and you can't necessarily pivot to another one, it makes it more challenging. And I think that obviously there's been so many struggles in some of these markets, destinations in the last few years that, they've been dealing with too.
That's true.
It's tough.
Yeah, I think the breadth is. We talk a lot about trust now, right? Within the AI world, and I think for me, Booking has my trust in Europe because I trust they have the breadth of the supply,
Yeah.
and I know they
Well,
haven't.
there we go.
Trust they've got enough to give me what I want, so I don't really shop around that much.
But you do trust the
Yeah.
Expedia brand, right?
Of course, yeah.
They dropped it on the supply side, but they have the trust factor. That I think they made another maybe smaller strategic drop when they acquired HomeAway, which was the best and most trusted brand. That was pre Airbnb for short-term rentals. Then maybe Airbnb came out. Then they acquired what was then known as VRBO, which is kind of the Craigslist version of short-term rentals, merged those together and decided to rebrand as Vrbo, where they had this trusted brand of HomeAway and VRBO, and they came up with Vrbo. And I don't know what happened to the numbers around that, but I feel like Expedia very easily could have become the leader in short-term rentals. And just from a branding perspective and a strategy perspective, the founders of HomeAway were the guys that built that business, and they left very quickly. So I think there's something there also, but probably
Acquisitions are hard.
What's that?
Acquisitions are hard.
Acquisitions are hard.
I think that's the takeaway. Yeah. You can. Okay. They can be very smart, but they don't always turn out the way you want them to, I guess.
Right. It's kind of a sleeping giant within Expedia, but I don't know why we
it's a good point, Bruce. Actually, and I should have remembered that there is that business within Expedia, but the fact that I didn't, I guess, suggest something. It's true. Kristen, to your point, I actually walked the Camino de Santiago a few years ago. I did the whole thing, and I'm not being a pilgrim. I didn't want to get up at 4 a.m. so that I could get my berth in the the little pensions every night. And I very quickly realized that Booking had all of the small hotels in all the little towns along the way, or certainly virtually all of them, whereas other services, including Expedia, just didn't. And that was that. And that kind of split me over to Booking, and now I use Booking, even though I'm an old Expedia guy, because so it's just like you said. And it's trust with a small T. It's like I don't need some big trust, because I sort of trust all the OTAs to do the booking right. But it's that small T thing of like, yeah, they're going to have what I need. I don't really feel like shopping around every time. I just want a one-night stay. I just want to go to a place I know is going to have it and get it done. Yeah. And to that extent, I think breadth of inventory makes a huge difference.
I still like the $sign though on the hotels.com. When I log on, it tells me how many dollars I have to spend, or that, my points. So that's why I still use both of them, because if I find something on Booking, I'll look on hotels.com, and if the price is the same, I'm like, yeah, I'm going for that because I like that $sign.
Little tricks.
That's good.
Yeah, they've got me for that. Yeah.
I think we're getting short of time, so if we jump to a quick fire, you ready for this, Erik?
Oh, sure.
It's an easy one. It's not a trick one. It's best 3 countries you've been to. Define best however you choose, and then we'll do 3 countries you haven't been to that you'd like to visit. So let's start with the
best countries I've been. That's a hard question. France, for all the obvious cheese-related reasons. England, because I'm a big rugby fan and I love going over there for that. And Oh, Japan, of course. Yeah, I mean, it's just who doesn't love going to Japan? And then 3 that I want to go to.
Yeah, top of your list.
Oh well, I've never been anywhere in sub-Saharan Africa, which is just bonkers at my age. And so I would love to go to Kenya, or I'll just say any of those countries. I'd love to go to Argentina, and I'd love to go to Vietnam.
Okay.
How
I thought we
about
were going to get through the whole
this
thing
weekend?
without mentioning Argentina, but you just did it.
When you said that, I
Oh,
thought, oh boy.
Argentina.
Argentina this weekend would probably be really fun.
Yeah.
Really
Or
interesting.
it would not be fun, one or the other.
Yeah, certainly be fun at the first part of the weekend. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
England was a good answer. Let's stick with the original England that you said in the first round.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks. We really appreciate your time, Eric. It's been great having you on.
Oh, happy to. It's fun. Nice chat. Thanks, guys.
I'm sure we'll see you maybe in an arrival soon, or at some trade show at some point pretty soon. Or
Probably see you in Spokane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
That's the plan. All right. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Okay, great.
All right.
Next
Thanks,
time.
guys.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.